All right, let's get right into it. If you're in health sciences education, you know the drill. There's always some new, trendy teaching method that everyone's talking about. We're constantly chasing the next big thing, right? Debating problem-based learning versus flipped classrooms, or how much high-fidelity simulation we need. But what if? What if all that focus on how we teach is causing us to completely miss the real problem? I mean, you've been there. I know you have. You designed this beautiful, evidence-based learning plan. It's elegant, it's perfect on paper, and then you unleash it onto the floor of a busy hospital ward, and it just falls apart. It's a total flop. Why is it that the clean, neat theories from our textbooks just seem to crash and burn in the face of messy, real-world clinical practice?
Well, here's why. It's because we're focusing all our energy on the stuff on the left, the shiny, sophisticated teaching formats. But our learners, they're living the reality on the right. They're dealing with a patient load so crushing there's zero time for deep thought, constant interruptions that destroy any chance of focus, and this deep-seated fear of judgment that makes asking a simple question feel like a career-ending move. It's a complete and total mismatch.
And that brings us to the absolute heart of the issue. The problem isn't your chosen teaching method. Problem-based learning is great. The problem is that we've completely misdiagnosed the illness. We're spending all our time trying to polish one tiny little cog, not realizing the entire machine is rusted shut. We are obsessing over the method when we should be looking at the entire learning system.
So, what we need to do is completely reframe how we think about this. Let's stop talking about isolated teaching techniques for a minute and start looking at the whole system. The source material for this explainer calls this the clinical learning engine. And here it is. This model gives us the full picture. See, clinical learning isn't just a simple case of I teach, you learn. No way. It's a complex, dynamic engine with 8 different parts, and they're all interconnected. If even one of these parts is broken or just running poorly, the whole engine starts to sputter and stall. And it doesn't matter how amazing your teaching method is at that point. And everything, I mean everything, starts right here, with what's called the practice ecology. You can think of this as the invisible architecture of your clinical unit. It's the workload, the hierarchy, the culture of supervision, the psychological safety, or lack thereof. This ecology sets the entire stage. It literally dictates what is even possible for learning before a single word of teaching ever happens. So here's how the engine is supposed to work in a perfect world. That practice ecology, the environment, shapes the learning inputs, the patient cases a student is assigned. Those inputs then trigger the learner's internal cognitive work, their learner operations, and all of that, ideally, helps them develop meta-monitoring, which is their ability to look at their own thinking and figure out what they do and don't know. From there, the system spits out feedback, which is either a crystal clear signal for improvement or just a bunch of static. This all happens on 2 different timescales, the quick, in-the-moment corrections, and the slow burn of forming professional habits. Then you've got the governor. This acts like a circuit breaker, managing the difficulty budget so the whole system doesn't just overload and shut down. And finally, the transfer and opportunity loop is where a student's competence either opens up doors to more learning opportunities, or their struggles shut those doors down.
Okay, so that's the blueprint. Now let's see how this engine really works by zooming in on one of the most important and frankly most fragile parts of the whole machine: feedback.
This quote really gets to the heart of it. You can give the most brilliant feedback in the world, but it's totally useless if the student hears it as an attack. For learning to actually happen, that feedback has to land as pure, useful, actionable information. If it doesn't, their brain just flips a switch from learning mode right into self-defense mode.
And this slide shows you exactly what that looks like. Take this simple phrase, "You missed a key sign." In a safe, supportive practice ecology, the student hears that and thinks, oh, okay, helpful data. I can use that to improve my process. It's about the work, not about them. But in a threatening, high-judgment environment, those exact same words are heard as, you're incompetent, you're not good enough. It's a personal attack. The signal is totally drowned out by the noise of fear. So, now that we're armed with this new model, we can finally go back to our original question and give a proper diagnosis for why our best teaching plans so often fail. Here it is. The engine breaks down when that difficulty budget gets maxed out. When the cognitive load of just understanding the medicine, plus the emotional threat of being judged, plus the sheer high stakes of patient care all spike at the same time, well, there's just no mental bandwidth left over for learning. The tank is empty. And when that overload happens, you start to see these very specific, very predictable warning signs.
Instead of genuine clinical reasoning, learners start focusing on impression management, just looking smart. They start hiding their mistakes, which means we have no idea what they actually don't know. They cling to protocols like a life raft to avoid having to think for themselves, and they become totally dependent on us, unable to steal their own learning.
So, the single most important takeaway here is this. We have to stop just tweaking our teaching style and start tuning the entire learning system.
Okay, so if that's the diagnosis, what's the prescription? What do we actually do about this? How do we start to fix this broken system?
The solution is to change our job title. We need to think of ourselves less as teachers and more as learning systems engineers. And as an engineer, you can start with this diagnostic checklist. First, audit the friction. What in the environment is making it hard to learn? Second, check the governor. Are you demanding too much too soon? Third, actively protect that feedback signal. Make sure it's being received as information, not threat. And fourth, watch those opportunity loops. Make sure that competence is being built, not accidentally stifled.
So I want to leave you with this one final question to chew on. The next time you get really excited about a new teaching method, just pause and ask yourself this. Are you trying to install a shiny new app on a computer that doesn't even have an operating system? Because if that underlying system, that practice ecology, is broken, the best app in the world is never, ever going to run.